Welcome to the Villa4EverPodcast. Podcast. I am your host, Chad Williams. This evening, I am joined by my guest, Dan Bardell, who is the host of the Villa View, and Frankie Maguire, who is the host of the All Villa, No Filler podcast. I'll be doing the end of season review. How are you guys? Good evening.
Good evening, Chad. Good to see you again. I'm good. Still really happy. Obviously, after the weekend, Villa qualifying for Europe, which we'll get into. But it's good to see you and good to see Frankie as well, because Frankie's doing some good stuff. His podcast seems to be going well. So yeah, it'd be nice to chat to you both.
Yeah, it's great to be you, Chad, as well, and great to see you again as well, Dan.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Frankie.
Thank you.
And also, thank you for spreading the word about my podcast as well.
Anytime.
All right, then we'll get into the exciting Villa chat. So I'll start with you first, Dan. How are you feeling after Sunday's win? After securing Conference League football? We are back in Europe after 13 years. Let's get the passports out. Get in.
Yeah, I checked mine the other day just in case, because I was a little bit worried that it was not in date, because I haven't been abroad for a few years. So I did have a little bit of a check of my passport the other day. Yeah, obviously delighted that we've got back into Europe. I think that's 13 years is too long for a club of Villa size to have not been in Europe. But it shows you that we've had some difficult few years. The last decade hasn't been great as a Villa fan, but one man's come in, Unai Emery, and just completely revitalised the club, transformed the club, and to have got us into Europe already. I did believe that he would be the manager to get us back into Europe, but I certainly didn't think it would be this season. I remember being on Sky Sports News in January and saying that Villa aren't going to go down, they're not going to get into Europe, so it's just about him having a look at what he's got and taking stock. But he's done far more than that. He's improved every single player that's there, and to have done that without bringing his own players in is so impressive. So take my hat off to him, because I think he's going to go down as the best manager I've ever seen Villa have, and to be honest, he's probably already making a case for it.
We need to get a statue for him.
It won't be too far away. I think a new contract might be coming. I don't think a statue just yet, but I think a new contract might be on the cards already. He's done a tremendous job.
Well, it was a fantastic achievement. I think we are back where we belong now. I absolutely love my football club. And despite going through the tough times, it makes the good times worth waiting for. I was very emotional after the final whistle, I was. I had tears in my eye.
Did you?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people crying around me, and I don't know whether I've got quite cold in my old age, but I felt like I was really happy. I still don't think it's actually hit me. I don't think it'll hit me until I'm at a game and you hear that Europa Conference theme tune and you're at Villa Park and you realise you're at a European night again. But Frankie's a similar age to me. I think you are anyway, Frank. You are now. I've said that, but you'd have grown up the same as me with Villa in Europe. And for Chad, it's probably like it's not happened too many times in your life because you're younger than us. But this is what Villa did when I was younger. So it's just brilliant, and I just can't wait for that first game at Villa Park, the European nights again.
Well, it was a sense of relief. When that whistle blew, I thought, oh, wow, what amazing. How amazing.
Oh, completely. It was when the final whistle went as well, it was like John McGinn kind of in the corner. It was like such a perfect way to end the season, weirdly, like quite poetic that John McGinn, of all players, was there when the crowd just roared and went crazy. It was just a moment of real elation that I think Aston Villa fans, we haven't really been able to enjoy for a very long time. It's been a lot of tough times since really Martin O'Neill walked out the door, 13 years ago now, I guess it was. And to be back in Europe. As Dan said, I believed Unai Emery was the man to get us back there, but to do it as quickly as he has, considering when he came in and off the back of a 3-0 loss to Fulham, a 4-0 loss to Newcastle, to be as good as we are, as I've been saying, I want to get a tattoo of Unai Emery on my face. If I was an architect, the people commissioning me would be wondering why every building I want to build looks like Unai Emery. I have so much admiration for him and what he's done so far at Aston Villa.
He's absolutely incredible. So, Frankie, how would you sum up Aston Villa season as a whole?
Well, it went from the absolute lowest of lows, didn't it? From the bottom of a chasm right to the very top of Mount Everest. It was, I think we went into this season with quite a bit of optimism. It had been a good pre-season.
Yeah.
Steven Gerrard had a lot of time to get this team going. He brought in a couple of, positive signings, particularly in Boubacar Kamara and Diego Carlos.
Yeah.
And so I think it all started falling apart within minutes. The first game of the season, Bournemouth away, we conceded an absurd goal from a set piece.
Yeah.
And that whole game, Villa were pathetic, no tactical nous at all. There was it didn't look like there was any, I don't know, like cohesion in how Villa were trying to attack Bournemouth, who themselves were in a bit of a crisis moment with Scott Parker and things hadn't gone well for them. So it was a moment of real shock for me and a moment of thinking, oh, wow, this might not be a good season. And then 2 games later, I went to Crystal Palace away. And again, it was the same thing, a lack of cohesion, defenders passing it back and forth with nowhere to go to get forward. And that was when I thought, oh, this ain't going to go as well as I hoped. And then obviously, the Gerrard era, it ran on and it didn't work, and he had to go when he went. And then for Unai Emery to come in and then immediately get that 3-1 win against Manchester United. As I said, me and Dan both the same age. So we both remember very vividly beating Manchester United in 1995. I didn't think we'd have to wait until the year 2022 to see that happen again at Villa Park, but we did. And, I was in the Trinity Road in 95 and I was in the Trinity Road again for that 3-1 win. And from that moment on, it felt like there was a buzz, and we had a manager who really had an understanding of how to approach the game. And it just feels like ever since then, every single game Villa have played, there's been a plan. It feels like Unai Emery's gone into this with, a high footballing IQ, but clearly a high EQ as well, an emotional side of it, where he's been able to inspire these players, make them, believe in what he's doing. And every single player I can think of has gone up a level. And so for Unai Emery to have done this, for the players to have done this, to have got the fans believing so much, and to actually get into Europe itself, for me, it ends up being a 10 out of 10 season. It's been a really special experience.
But Unai Emery, he's always breaking a lot of records as well. Not since he's took charge.
Yeah, I do the Stato show every Friday with AVFC Stato from Twitter, and every week we talk about a record that Unai Emery's broke, records that have been held for when I started supporting Villa. Most of them are by John Gregory and Brian Little, but Unai Emery every week seems to break some kind of record. The one where we scored for, was it 22, 23 games in a row? I find that just fascinating, because at the start of the season, we didn't look like we were ever going to score. We couldn't hit a barn door. In some games, you couldn't see where the goals were going to come from. But the same players, went on that massive scoring run. And there's goals throughout the team now, and they'll add more goals in the summer as well. So it's exciting.
Well, it's been a absolute roller coaster. It's been a season to remember. But if you told me when Unai Emery first took over, we would finish the season in Europe, I wouldn't have believed you at all. But that's what most supporters think that now.
There was some that said my barber had a bet when Unai Emery took over, saying if Villa didn't get into Europe or England didn't win the World Cup, he'd get a Birmingham City tattoo. A brave bet. I said to him, "Yeah, absolutely crazy. What are you thinking?" But he's come through and he's won the bet, and he doesn't have to get the Birmingham City tattoo. So fair play to him, because he did see it come in. He made that bet literally the day Unai Emery got appointed. He had that much confidence.
Wow.
I couldn't think of anything worse.
No, it wouldn't have been ideal. So at his barbers as well, there's literally a tattoo studio in the same building. So he'd have had to have had it done. He'd have had to have done.
Yeah. I know you said there were people crying around you, and I bet he was one of them out of relief.
Yeah, I bet he's relieved.
Well, Dan, I'll move on. You can have the next question next.
Okay.
Did you think Douglas Luiz deserved player of the season?
Yeah, I do. I think it was probably. I'd have said there was 4 contenders, and then it probably got weaned down to 2 in Douglas Luiz and Tyrone Mings. I would have said they were the 2 favourites going into the awards. Douglas Luiz has been really, really consistent. I think he's upped his game as well. His goal contributions this season are much higher than they have been in previous seasons. And the way that Emery plays football and the system that Villa have, especially when Kamara's playing, and to be in fairness, actually, when McGinn's been next to him as well, it just gives him a little bit more licence to do the things that he's really good at. And it was quite fitting as well that he scored a goal on the last day of the season to set us on our way as well, because he's been really, really productive this season. He's a lovely footballer. I think for much of his time at Villa, he probably hasn't been playing he hasn't been playing the position that probably gets the best out of him as the single pivot protecting the back four. I don't think that lets Douglas Luiz do everything that he's good at, but this season I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I thought he was really good under Gerrard as well, but Gerrard just didn't really seem to want to pick him. He kept wheeling out the same midfield 3 week in, week out, and I think Villa's midfield was perhaps an area of concern at the end of last season and at the start of this season. I think it probably ended the season as our strongest area in our team. So I think Douglas Luiz deserved it fully, but I think Mings was pretty close because, again, I think he was good for the entirety of the campaign. I think I read earlier he got the most interceptions in the Premier League this season, and he fully deserves to be back in the England squad as well because he's been exceptional.
Well, he's a top quality football player. He has definitely shown his true potential under Unai Emery. Also, I watched the podcast when Greg Evans did review Dan.
Yep.
And he said in the 1874 show, Luiz had a good chance getting into the Brazil squad. Totally agree with that.
Yeah, he should do, shouldn't he? He's been in there before, albeit quite briefly, but he's playing the best football of his life at the moment. He's playing regular, or he's a massive part of a team that's just finishing the top 7 and that's going to be playing in Europe. I know there's a few Brazilian players that play in the Premier League. So I think now you're going to start to see a couple of players maybe in the Brazil team start to get phased out a little bit because they're into the 30s and they're getting on a bit. He's probably, along with Guimaraes, more of the future of what you'll see line up for Brazil. I think it's good that we've got him tied up to a big contract as well. I was surprised he signed that contract under Gerrard because he wasn't playing, but we've got him. I think he loves the club as well. I think he genuinely enjoys being at Villa, one of our longer serving players now. So I think Greg's right. I think Brazil will come calling for him soon, I would think.
Well, Frankie, I'll ask you the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you expect Unai Emery to turn it around so quickly, considering the circumstances we were in when he took charge?
No, not as fast as he did, for sure. I certainly thought there'd be at least a new manager bounce, just because of where we were. That it could. The only way really was up. You'd hope. And I think before the season, I did believe that Villa's squad was strong enough to finish in the top half. So I think my aim with Emery when he came in was to, looking at the table, teams like Brentford and Fulham and Tottenham, they look miles away. I just thought it was going to be a lot to overhaul that. So I didn't expect for Villa's players to adapt to his style as rapidly as they did. I didn't expect our back line to be able to be so comfortable playing it around at the back as quickly as they did. I mean, right from the Manchester United game, his first game, I remember Emi Martinez holding onto the ball and just waiting for the United attackers to come to him so he could then just pass it off to Mings or Konsa. And that's straight away, Unai Emery's imprint was there. But for them to have adapted to it as quickly as they have, and you've seen that in every player. Watkins to have scored as many goals as he has. Douglas Luiz to has become that sort of midfield playmaking linchpin, I guess. John McGinn to have got, refound himself. Mings to become a player who just looks like an absolute talisman. An absolutely incredible football player. And that high line as well, it's difficult to pull that off. And you've got to give massive credit to the whole back lines to have done it. But also to, I'd say, Mings as that kind of leader character at the back to have really probably led the way in that working. For all of them to have adapted to a totally new style, one that's quite ambitious, quite difficult to pull off. I've always rated all these players. I think they were a lot better than they were showing. But for them to have come around as quickly as they have, and for Unai Emery to have got Villa, to have improved Villa as quickly as it has, I just I thought he would improve us, but I didn't anticipate he'd improve us this rapidly and to this to such an electric degree. It's been an amazing experience, to be honest.
All of his philosophy on football, Unai Emery. It's amazing just to see what he does on the training ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Dan, I'll go on to you for the next question now. Are you impressed with what Unai Emery has done with the same group of players, getting the best out of them?
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing, really. I think if you rewind to the year before in January when Steven Gerrard was the manager, he was speaking about needing his own players. If the players don't do the stuff he wants, I'll get some players in that are better, basically, and just quite short term in his thinking. You look at a couple of his signings who, to be fair, will probably go on and be good under Emery, Coutinho and Luca Dean approaching 30 or in their 30. It was all quite short term. That January with what Steven Gerrard was thinking, it was like, I need this now, give it me, and he got it. And to be honest, when he got his own players in, that was when we started to go a little bit downhill. And Unai Emery is the complete opposite. In January, he identifies an area that he thinks needs improving in the left back area, and we bring in Alex Moreno. And at the time, I probably wouldn't have said that was a huge priority left back. I'd have said there was maybe other areas of the squad that needed improving first, but he brought in Alex Moreno. It's actually a really clever signing because he actually transformed the way in which Villa were able to attack. They could be a bit more adventurous because Moreno's got that pace. They could stretch the game on that side. And the way that Emery likes to play, the right back tends to tuck in, and it's the left back that's providing the width down that side, which is pivotal, especially when you're kind of playing central midfielders as wide players, which works perfectly because Unai Emery's a genius. But I think that left back position was very, very important. I think when he came into the team, that was when we started to get better. I think technically he's a very good player as well. Not only is he good going forward, I think he's quite solid defensively. He's got a little bit of pace about him. Villa were, I would say, not the quickest team in the Premier League. I think he's provided that outlet down that side, and he's quite tidy on the ball with both feet as well. So if that's the kind of player that we're going to be getting in under Unai Emery, you look at what he's done in one window. He's improved everyone else that was already there, but just that one player came in and made such a huge difference in a short space of time. I think we'll maybe pick up some other players of that ilk as well, and Emery will work with them, and they'll be the players that he wants, and they'll play in the way they'll just integrate into his system flawlessly because you've seen what he's done with the players that are there and how he's improved them. If he gets a pre-season with players as well, those players are going to improve, and the players that he brings in are going to have a few weeks to adapt as well. So everything he's done so far has been spot on. I literally don't have any criticism of him. And even those games that we lost, the three in a row, and then we lost 2 in a row recently as well, I think he's that clever that if you lose a game, sometimes in a way that will stand us in good stead because he learns so much and he adapts and he'll change things. I just think he's such a clever manager. I've never seen anything like him for Villa. I find us tactically fascinating now, whereas previously I can't say I've ever found us that tactically fascinating.
Well, it's incredible what he's done. We're just in the tactics, formation, and style of play. I mean, he's improved the players who are underperforming. Obviously, like Watkins, Tyrone Mings, Jacob Ramsey, obviously, and John McGinn. I mean, before Steven Gerrard, those players weren't performing as well at all.
Struggling, weren't they?
Yeah, all of them were.
Well, I'll go on to the next question now. I'll start with you, Frankie.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think was the worst moment of the season?
God, that's a tough. I think I think probably the lowest point was probably the 3-0 away at Fulham. It became a toxic atmosphere, and things hadn't really been toxic at Aston Villa in quite a long time. I mean, me and Dan have both experienced toxic atmospheres at Villa Park quite a few times in the years we've supported them. But, to be honest, since the Dean Smith era, I guess, things had been all right for a few years. But it just felt like people have been alienated a bit by Gerrard, I think. It wasn't working. And I think at Fulham, that toxicity really was felt. But I think, for me, the lowest point, weirdly, could also be the Bournemouth away, that 2-0. It was just such a shock. I remember being so shocked at what I was witnessing and just thinking, Villa look like a team who don't know how to play football. Like that, they don't look coached, which is a complete contrast to how we are now. And again, testament to how good Unai Emery is. But that 2-0 at Bournemouth, and it's not like I'm not getting at Bournemouth or anything or saying they were a bad team, but the fact of the matter was they were newly promoted. They were going through, I think Scott Parker had made a comment about them not making the right signings or something like that. It just felt like things weren't quite right at Bournemouth in that game, and you thought, now surely Villa, established Premier League team, we can go there and do something, and we didn't. I don't think we had a shot. It was and looked chaotic every time we tried to defend a set piece. So I think that was for me actually, aside from the Fulham game, probably the lowest point, probably the biggest disappointment of the season.
Well, it has to be that Fulham game, that 3-0 defeat to Fulham. Been a team that completely dejected.
Oh yeah. I think it was a game where Sawiris himself, I think, walked out after Douglas Luiz got that red card that later got rescinded, and the fans chanting, and I think just the expression on Gerrard's face, the whole thing just was like, oh dear, it can't get any worse than this, can it?
Well, Dan, I'll go on to the next question now. What do you think was the best moment of our season, Dan? Has to be the last game.
Yeah, but I think in the build up to that, for me, my favourite game of the season was Newcastle at home.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because Newcastle were going really well. I think they'd won 5 in a row before they came to Villa Park. They were pushing for the Champions League. They've been in the Champions League places for the majority of the season, and we were just then. I felt like people were starting to take notice of us a little bit. I think we just beat Chelsea, perhaps, and I felt like the pundits in the country was just starting to take notice of us, that we were suddenly sneaking into these European positions, and we blew Newcastle away that day. And if you speak to Newcastle fans and you ask them who's the best team they've played this season, they'll say Villa. At Villa Park, we absolutely blew them away. That start, that game, when Frankie talked about having game plans, that the game plan for that day was to just blow them away in the first 15 minutes. And we did that. We got the early goal. We could have scored a couple more in that first half. And then in the second half, I just felt like we were always in control of the game, and we got a couple of more goals and kept yet another clean sheet. Watkins was on fire at that point as well, scoring every week. So to me, obviously the Brighton game was brilliant because we qualified for Europe.
Of course,
But the Newcastle game was when I thought, okay, I think with a real deal here, we've got a really good chance of qualifying for Europe. So it would probably be that game for me.
Yeah, because with the Newcastle game, no one expected that at all.
I thought we might win, but I didn't think 3-0.
Yeah, because obviously, because Newcastle there, obviously qualified for the Champions League.
It's a great result, isn't it? That's our best result of the season, in my opinion. That was when we played a team that were on top of their game, and we just blitzed them, blew them away. That they couldn't live with us, and the game plan was spot on. And I really enjoyed that game. It's a lunchtime kickoff, so we were there early. It was a full Villa Park. I thought the atmosphere was even better than it was on Sunday in that Newcastle game. I thought the atmosphere in the whole team where I sit was absolutely frightening. So that probably goes down in my top 5 games ever, I would say. I absolutely loved it.
So I'll ask you the next question, Frankie.
Yeah.
When do you start to believe that European football was possible?
So I went to the Chelsea away game, and Chelsea's not a place that we tend to get great results. We've had a few very bad ones over the years. Thankfully, this time that was different, and we won 2-0. And I know Chelsea had a bad season, and it but I think before the game, when I was in the concourse, I remember being like,
Yeah.
the fans believe here. I think we all know something's on here, and it just felt like Chelsea were there for the taking, considering the form Villa had. And then going into that game, and just being in the stand, the fans going, crazy from the first second right to the very last, and getting the goal for Watkins, and then I think McGinn getting that goal, his first in about 16 months, I think it was. It was such a release. And so for Villa to get a result at Stamford Bridge, and it was also the final nail in the coffin for Graham Potter. I think for Villa to get the result there, I started to really think that we're a serious team. It feels like we can take on anyone. But then, as Dan says, that Newcastle game, I kept saying it before. I kept saying it was like the acid test, because we've had a lot of good results, but a lot of the teams that we'd beaten weren't in the best of form. Yeah, we're going up against Newcastle, best defence in the league, a team who barely lost all season. And as Dan says, top 5 ever. I think it's maybe one of the best performances I've ever seen from an Aston Villa team, because considering the form they were in from the first minute, that game could have been 6-0. Like, we absolutely just destroyed them. And I just came away from it and I was like, I'm immediately going to the nearest Spanish bar and having as many sangrias as I can to celebrate Unai Emery, because I was just so elated with what I'd witnessed. And I'd had a fair bit of words from a few Newcastle friends of mine as well that week. So it was quite fun as well. But I think that game, seeing that, it was like, as Dan says, the real deal. And thought, I think we look like a team who could take on anyone now. And Europe feels like a definite possibility. So probably the Chelsea games where I started to believe, but the Newcastle game is where I had it nailed on. I was like, I think we can do this.
Well, that Leicester result, that was crucial, that result was as well. That Traore, he scored a brilliant finish.
That was a real highlight of the season, that goal. Very, very special moment.
So, Dan, I'll ask you the next question. What was your favourite goal of the season?
Wasn't the Traore one. I know Traore won the goal of the season. My favourite goal of the season was actually in a defeat. So at home to Arsenal, the Coutinho goal, because that was in a nutshell. I think that kind of goal. That's how Unai Emery wants to play football. It was the first time we'd maybe seen that kind of goal in his tenure so far. So it started with Martinez. I think Greg said it was like nine seconds later. The ball was in the back of the net. I just thought it was a really good move, a lovely dummy from Buendia, and Coutinho, who hadn't scored all season.
It was a team goal.
Yeah, it was a team goal, so I liked that, and I just thought it was a really clever dummy from Buendia, and it was a real smart finish from Coutinho as well, going back across from where the ball had come from, back across the goalkeepers. I just thought that was a little snapshot into what Unai Emery wanted, and I think that was the first time we'd scored a goal from the playing out from the back, and it was where I sit. There was times where it would get quite edgy with the playing out from the back, but I think that was when everyone just started to see, right, okay, if we stick with this, this is what we'll see. This is the kind of football we'll see. And Moreno was involved in that goal as well. I just thought it was a really lovely team goal, and that was probably my favourite goal of the season, but not in my favourite game, that's for sure.
Yeah. But I enjoyed John McGinn against Chelsea. I mean, that was a special finish, that was.
Yeah, lovely goal.
He put a lot of power into it as well. Well, Frankie, I'll ask you the next question. After this season, do you think we should be excited for the future?
Absolutely. To a degree that I have not felt maybe ever as a Villa fan. I mean, the Martin O'Neill era was a bit of a golden era, I guess. And in the 90s, we had some, great times as well. But there's just something about this manager, and that feels like he, I think aura, maybe, but it does feel like he has a bit of an aura, doesn't it? It feels like he has a kind of a presence and an approach to football that is dedicated. He studies every single team, and it feels like every time we play anybody, he has a game plan. And so, and to see the one signing he's made, I mean, Yonder Ran came in, but I think that was a club signing. I think, Alex Moreno was his signing. And to see Moreno come in a bit unheralded, and as Dan said, in a position that it didn't necessarily look like that's where we needed fix it up. But he came in
Yeah.
and he's been an absolute revelation. So again, with transfers, I trust him totally. With the team and the players we have, I trust him totally.
But Unai Emery, he's got full control over transfers.
Well,
Yeah.
Obviously now as well.
Yeah. So, so I think, to think that not only have we got into the top half, which I think would have been a great stepping stone onto, potentially going further, we've got back in the top half. We've got over 60 points. We've got into Europe. So, hopefully that European football can attract some of the players who might not necessarily have been as attracted were we not to offer that. But then, just with an ownership as well that's clearly very ambitious, and just a group of players who clearly are, invested in this. I just think we can look at any side and take them on. And I genuinely think it's Unai Emery who's given me this sense of belief. And Villa have had plenty of false storms before. I'm under no illusions that football can change very quickly,
Of course,
and it can go in ways you don't expect. But I just feel like Emery's very, very dedicated to this project, and he's a man who's been there. He's won, 4 Europa Leagues, he won 3 in a row, which is an amazing achievement.
Oh, incredible CV.
Won it with Villarreal. So, you look at teams like West Ham, who've made it to Conference League final. They made it to the semi-final of the Europa League. A team like Rangers made the Europa League final last year.
Yeah.
Why can't Aston Villa dare to dream and look at teams like that, look at the manager we have, look at the players we have, and dare to believe that we can get to somewhere like that?
Of course. Well, I think you can already see the progression we've made under Unai Emery. What I like about him, he's always looking to improve, and he's very ambitious.
Yeah, you can. That ambition comes out, and it's even the way he connects with the fans as well. Even social media posts he says where he's looking out of Villa Park and speaking of his admiration, and people could say that's for show or whatever, but it still means something. It really does feel like he has a connection.
Yeah,
but I don't think I felt so manager. Obviously, with Dean Smith, I felt that, but he was he was a Villa fan growing up, so I'm not sure I felt that with a manager for a very, very long time.
Well, Dan, I'll ask you the next question. What was your favourite chant of the season?
We're not the best at chants, are we?
No, not the best.
We don't have the best chance in the Premier League. I don't think. Probably just it's not my favourite chant. I do like this. The LA on Sunday near the end of the game. I think when McGinn was keeping the ball in the corner, I think that chant was pretty loud on Sunday. Probably that was one of my favourite moments because everyone was singing it in the whole end. The whole end was bouncing. There was this sense of anticipation waiting for the whistle to go. But generally, I don't know why it is. We just don't seem to have. We're not great at chants. I don't know why. There was a new Matty Cash. I went to Anfield and there was a new Matty Cash song doing the rounds in the pub beforehand. But I gotta be honest, I didn't know the words to it, so I didn't join in. It was quite a complicated one. But we've got. That's one thing I'd like to see us be better at. I don't know how you go about being better at it. But I'd like to see us come up with some more original songs. Like the Coutinho song is brilliant because no one else sings it. No one else sings that song in that tune. It's brilliant. The Coutinho song, whoever came up with that and managed to distribute it and get it around the fans. But we could do with that guy maybe coming up with a few more chants because I think we're very good at a lot of things at the moment as a club and as a fan base. Chance isn't one of the things I'd say we're stronger.
But I like the Super Unai Emery chants.
Yeah, that's a good one. But Arsenal have been singing that about Arteta all season. I feel like it's an easy takeoff, isn't it? I'd like to see us come up with something
unique,
something clever, and unique.
Yeah. Well, Frankie, I'll ask you the next question. Have you been impressed with our defensive shape and organisation this season?
Oh, absolutely. To play that high line is difficult. It is difficult because it's quite high risk in a way because you are effectively, if you get it wrong, the opposition team can break through and they got clean through on goal. And I think there's other teams who try to play who might not necessarily do it as well as Villa do. But to see the way Villa have pulled it off, I mean, it just feels like in every single game there's like endless offsides for the other team. Happened against Tottenham. Son Heung-min was just constantly caught offside. Same thing happened again at Manchester United. I remember Rashford was always offside. And we barely concede goals. We barely concede. So, I've seen a few pundits say, talking about this highline, saying maybe Villa are risking it, maybe Villa are going to get a bit lucky. I don't think so at all. I think Villa have done, the coaches, Emery, Eisteren, whoever else, have done a fantastic job at drilling this into this back line and getting them to, be mature and confident enough to not just hold that high line, but also play it around at the back. Be so confident. As Dan says, I've been to a few games where when we started doing it, there were a few fans around me getting a bit tetchy and get rid of it and all that. But instead, it's just the confidence to play the ball wherever they are. It doesn't matter where they are. I've got 2 players on them. It doesn't matter what period of the game it is. If we're under pressure, against Liverpool away, Liverpool press high against you. They're tough to play against. But right at the start of that game, Villa were trying so much to play it around at the back, and they were doing it. And a big part of that also is Douglas Luiz coming deep and taking the ball off them, which is part of what a great midfielder is. But so Villa's not only be able to play it around the back as well as they have, but also to play that high line. And, I think back to the Tottenham game in the 94th minute when Son got through, scored that goal that ended up being offside. And the maturity and intelligence of Ezri Konsa to just hold his line. Everything in your head's just screaming at you, run, chase him, go after him. He said he held it, he stood, and Son ran beyond the line and went and scored. It was offside. So I think it's an amazing reflection of how committed these players are to learning from Emery, and how talented they are to have effectively played a difficult style and learnt it so rapidly. It's a real testament to all of them, I think.
Well, the defence has been magnificent. Yeah. A lot of teams who play against us, I think they find it hard to break us down. And we are keeping a lot more clean sheets as well.
Oh yeah, completely. And Alex Moreno as well. The way he attacks from that left back position. It's just a sight to behold, really.
Well, I really enjoy watching Unai Emery on the touchline, seeing his passion as well.
Oh yeah, it's inspires me. Makes me want to go down and run on the pitch myself and go on and do whatever he asks. So I think it gets the fans into it, and the players get as into it as well.
It's really refreshing to see.
You've got a good view of him, haven't you, Chad? Where you sit, you're the Trinity.
So great. Yeah, just above the tunnel.
Yeah, you get a good view of Unai Emery. I think there was one game I remember thinking, I think Unai Emery did more movement in the last 10 minutes than the Villa team, because we were sat in and trying to defend. I think Unai Emery, his numbers must have been through the roof for that game, because I can't remember which game it was, but he literally, I think it might have been the Spurs game actually. Yeah. He just never stopped moving, never sat down. So I think if you look at his stats after the game, I reckon he's put some miles in.
Yeah.
But I always like a manager like that. It shows how much he cares for the football club.
Shows what a good coach is as well, because he changes things in game. That's the fascinating thing. That first game, Manchester United, you could visibly see him coaching the players and changing little tweaks through the games depending on what was happening. And I'd never seen anything like that before at Villa Park, and that was game 1 as well. I think that was what made it even more impressive. And he's just got better. There was a few teething problems at one stage where we lost a few games, and you'd question whether it was going to work, perhaps, but. We stuck with it, and he stuck by his plan. He didn't change anything, and he spoke from day one about trying to have control of football matches. And I think initially that was the bit that we maybe struggled with. But after that 3-game run, I think we went to Goodison Park and won 2-0, and the 10 unbeaten. Felt like we were pretty much in control of every game, even in the games where maybe we didn't have as much possession as the other team. Defensively, we were so astute and knew what we were doing. Just always felt like we were in control of the games in that 10-game run.
So, Frankie, I'll ask you the next question. Why did you think Steven Gerrard couldn't get it right?
Glad you had that one.
I may have said a few not nice things about Steven Gerrard. I'll try and be more polite on as a guest. Look, I think I can't shake the idea that Steven Gerrard's approach was somewhat that the coaches would do the coaching.
Yeah.
He'd be the Alex Ferguson who came in with his aura. I'm Steven Gerrard. I'm captain, leader, whatever.
Yeah.
And the players will just react to that, and the coaches will have done the rest. I just in my head feel like when Unai Emery during the week is at home, he's away in a room somewhere and he ain't gaming, he ain't playing Legend of Zelda. He's watching tapes of whoever it is Aston Villa are going to be playing next.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Steven Gerrard has such a meticulous approach. That could be unfair, maybe it does. But I just can't help but think that if Emery watches multiple games, he'll identify things that will help Aston Villa. And I'm not sure Gerrard is experienced or maybe as capable as Unai Emery is in that sort of a approach. And then on top of that, I think Gerrard made a few mistakes with things he said. He said something like, I wouldn't be where I am without Michael Beale. So when Michael Beale leaves, well, what does that mean? And then on top of that, just comments he said like about Tyrone Mings needs to look me in the eye. Now, Tyrone Mings is a huge part of Aston Villa. I think he's one of the best signings we've made.
He's a great player.
He's a fantastic player, not just a fantastic player on the pitch, but he's a fantastic club representative off the pitch as well. He's in every single way a real credit to Aston Villa. Now, Gerrard has every right to pick who he wants, and he has every right to say who he wants as captain.
Yeah.
But there was just, I think there's a way of doing it that he didn't have to be as, I'll take the captaincy off him, drop him to the bench. He needs to look me in the eye, and he ain't even going to be a vice captain. It made it awkward for McGinn. It made it awkward for Mings. And then on top of that, just as I think Dan mentioned it earlier about the midfield, just sticking with that midfield three. And I went to Palace, and I remember people cheered when John McGinn got taken off, right? The problem was he was playing McGinn in a role that was Douglas Luiz's. McGinn's not that Douglas Luiz player. He's a player. He needs a bit more, as a second striker or right midfield. He can play centre mid as he did very well. I think it was against Spurs. But, I just think Douglas Luiz is obviously better in that role. And so when Douglas Luiz came on against Palace, suddenly Villa finally looked like they could play football. So it was just sort of sticking to the same bad decisions, strange comments.
What it is, he was very tactically stubborn.
Stubborn.
And no experience.
Yes. I think so. And it just looked like his in-game changes, Emery changes things in the game at exactly the right time.
Exactly.
Or you always believe in what he's doing. And Gerrard just never, ever gave off that kind of a vibe. It always felt like it was a bit performative. I've been a bit harsher on my podcast, but I'll keep it polite. But yeah. So I felt like I just don't think he quite was ready for the Aston Villa job, to be honest.
Well, I actually had a video call from Steven Gerrard.
I'm sure he's a nice person. I'm sure he's a good guy, but he just wasn't a great manager for Villa.
Well, wait, is that John McGinn shirt there? He actually got me that John McGinn shirt.
Oh, fair play to him.
Yeah,
that's a nice thing to do.
He said to me, it just wasn't his time. Simple as that.
Right.
Interesting. Exclusive.
Did bring in Boubacar Kamara as well, so you got to give.
Yeah, he was a big part of that. He was a big part of that, and Boubacar Kamara's going to be. He's already been good for Villa, but he's going to be sensational, and he's probably. I mean, we got him for free. I'd say he's probably worth 50 million at least at the moment. So good, and if he can stay fit next season, he'll be a huge part of Villa going forward.
Well, I'll move on to the next question now. I'll start with you, Dan. Have you been impressed with how quickly Jacob Ramsey has developed a young player?
Yeah, I think he had some good moments last season. I thought he was quite productive last season. There was a spell where he was scoring a few goals and he was really involved in games, counter-attack, was linking up well with Coutinho. And, he had a good season last season, but like the rest of the team, probably from March onwards, he started to tail off a little bit and going to games, they were a bit boring. There wasn't much happening. The midfield was a massive problem for Villa. It was something that Gerrard just wouldn't change it, but he needed changing, and he couldn't get a tune out of all those midfielders that are now playing really well under Unai Emery. And again, I think Unai Emery coming in and being so specific with what he wants from you wherever you're playing on the pitch. Ramsey's numbers, I think he's got 12 or 13 goal contributions this season. I think 11 of them have come under Unai Emery. So at the back end of the season as well, he scored some important goals and got some important assists. Got 2. 2 assists at the weekend against Brighton. He's just become a really big part of how we play.
Yeah.
When we manage to open up teams and we get that space to run into, that's where Jacob Ramsey really comes into his own, like he did for the second goal against Brighton at the weekend. And he's just a lovely footballer. He'll go on and he'll play for England. I think he's obviously he's a Villa lad as well.
Totally
We always
agree.
like it. We always like it when there's a local boy who's come through the academy in the team, and he's got levels to go. I think still Jacob Ramsey. I still think there's room for improvement for him. But towards the end of the season, I think he found some consistency and was really starting to impact games. But I think every one of those midfielders that were struggling under Steven Gerrard, I thought each one of them was excellent under Unai Emery, and Ramsey was one of them.
Because look, with Ramsey, he's flourished under Emery. You can see his confidence as well.
Yeah, confidence is a massive thing in football as well.
Assists, adding goals to his game as well.
Yeah, lovely.
Well, Frankie, I'll ask you the next question. Did you expect Watkins to be scoring goals so consistently during the season?
Something I've said about Watkins before is that, after that first season, I think he scored maybe 14 goals in his first season at Villa. And I thought from that, he could bounce on and aim for 20.
Yeah.
Then we signed Danny Ings and it became a bit, it was.
Yeah.
I like Ings a lot. I think he's a very talented player and a really good guy. But I think it sent a weird message to Watkins. And it was kind of like, do they work together? Does it mean Watkins goes out to the left of a 3? I don't know. So it kind of felt like Watkins hadn't lost his way, but wasn't performing to the level that he could do, largely because I think Villa's approach to him had been quite odd. Mm-hmm. As soon as kind of Emery came in, it felt like Emery said to him, "You are my man."
Yeah.
And has obviously coached him not to run around as much, maybe to pick his moments when to run. So I always believed Watkins could be a player who can get to 20 goals a season, and I think maybe even next season he should aim for that. And I did believe this season he'd do well, but when Emery came in, I think he'd only scored a couple of goals. So I didn't think I'd end up seeing him scoring as many in a row as he did. I sort of forget now. Was it eight in a row? Or
yes,
eight.
Was it 8 in the end?
Or something, it was something like that. I know
he scored 8 in 10. I think he scored 8 in 10. Yeah,
that was it. So 8 in 10. It just felt like not only did his goal scoring improve massively, but also just everything kind of like his all-round game. Like he became so much more confident, with the ball into his feet. Because there have been times in the past where there'd be games where maybe it bounced off him a bit, but his hold-up play, his link-up play, everything about his all-round game has improved massively. And I think he's extremely unlucky not to have been called up for England. Personally, I think he'd be a great attribute.
Well, with the Villa side, he was getting real good service.
Yeah.
And the style of play suits him.
Yeah.
That suits Emery touch charge.
Completely. And it's brought out the best in him. And I didn't expect him to score as many as he did in such a short space of time. I can't remember a striker in a long time for Villa who's been getting numbers like that. But it's been, again, a fantastic thing to watch this season in a season where a lot of players have ended up surprising you with just how good they've been.
Well, Dan, I'll ask you the next question. Has this season proven how important Mings and Konsa, their defensive partnership, been for the team?
Yeah, both been really, really good. Konsa probably doesn't get the prize that he's deserved over the second half of the season because I think Mings is a bit more all action. The things he does, you probably can see them a little bit more on the football pitch. But they were a good partnership in that COVID season. I thought that we had some good defensive displays that season. We kept a lot of clean sheets. I think they've got back to that level. But I think both of them as well deserve huge credit for how they've adapted to the playing out from the back. I think they've both shown that they're hugely adept footballers. The way they play the ball out from the back, and at times it was them two that were breaking the lines with passes, which I think was really encouraging to see. I think Diego Carlos was brought in to compete with them. Obviously, he ended up being injured for the whole season, and then it was quite clear that Chambers was back up. So they both had to play a lot of games as well. So their durability this season has been important because Carlos has missed a huge chunk of the season. Now I think Emery will bring in another centre half in the summer. I think there'll be another centre half that comes in and there'll be 4 people competing for 2 spots. But also think potentially Ashley Young's moved on. Would we definitely buy a right back? I don't know. You might see some games in Europe in particular where Konsa ends up playing as a right back. That's something that Emery's done quite a lot in his managerial career. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I imagine they'll both start the season in the shirt because neither of them have done anything wrong and they deserve the chance to start that season. I was getting a bit worried about Konsa and his form under Gerrard. I thought he'd really, really lost his way. And I remember watching that Palace game and thinking, is taken out for his own good here because he's really, really suffering. He's not performing. But after that, I think he reset, and him and Mings have been good for the majority of the season, I would say, but they've taken it to a new level under Unai Emery because the amount of clean sheets we've kept is huge, and a lot of that is down to them and their partnership.
Well, I'd just like to wish Ashley Young best wishes and good luck for the future. He's been a great servant for this football club, and his dedication to the game is outstanding. I think he'll definitely go down as an Aston Villa legend.
Totally.
I agree. He's been brilliant. I was quite surprised to see him leave, but you have to trust the process and trust what Unai Emery wants. I think he's earned that, but Ashley Young couldn't have done any more this season for Villa. I think he was a real surprise this season against someone who I think was playing well under Steven Gerrard as well. He was probably one of our better players under Gerrard. I remember him coming on in that Man City game and going toe-to-toe with De Bruyne and coming out on top. I think Ashley Young had a really, really strong season and had to play a lot of games because of people being injured as well. So I think he deserves huge credit. Would have been a massive part in the dressing room as well. Someone that will be missed, but as much as I'd have liked him to stay, you simply have to back the manager. But I think you're right. I think he goes down as a club legend now. I think that's 6.5 years he'll have given Villa all in, and some 4.5 years as an excellent winger, one of the best wide players we've had in the Premier League era, and then a pretty good fullback as well, which I didn't think I'd ever be saying when I was watching him tear it up down that left flank as a wide player. So fair play to him. Obviously a really, really clever footballer as well to have adapted his game and being able to play that role. And shame he didn't get a new contract because he, like I say, I don't think he could have actually done any more, but you have to trust the process.
Well, I met Ashley Young at the Belfry 2 years ago. He's a great bloke as well.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever met Ashley. I think one of the ones I've never met, actually. I don't think I've ever met him, but everyone says he's a lovely guy, and I'm sure he'll carry on playing. I'm sure he could probably still play in the Premier League. Someone wouldn't surprise me to see him at one of the newly promoted sides. To be honest, I think he's still got a lot to give football, and in the bleep test and stuff at the start of the season, I believe he was in the top 3. So at 37, there's not many. I think he's older than me, Ashley Young. There's not many players that have been older than me. So I'm sorry to see him go from that point of view, to be honest, as well. It was nice to have a player that was older than me in the team, but that's no longer the case.
Well, I'm going to read my Premier League predictions. As in my next season prediction. It sounds a bit overly ambitious, but I'll tell you all.
Okay.
So I'm going to go Premier League finish 5th in the league. We'll just miss out on top 4, I think. Conference League, I'm going to go quarter-final. I think League Cup, we won't get through to the quarter-final. But because Unai Emery is the cup specialist, I'm going to go, he's going to win the FA Cup for us.
I'd take it. I'd certainly take it. I'd take all those things you've just said. FA Cup and 5th. I'd probably take that if I was offered it now. But I just think I've got this feeling we're going to win the Conference League. I've just got this feeling to have made that huge effort and that huge push to have to get there and qualify for it, knowing what Emery's done in Europe and like Frankie said earlier, some of the teams that have gone far in the European competitions in recent years. I just think, why not us with this manager? We've got every chance, and home games as well. I'd back us to beat absolutely everyone at the moment. So I've just got this feeling that next season, this time next year, we might be doing this, Chad, and we might be talking about Villa winning a European trophy.
Yeah, or Champions League.
That's to come. That's to come. One day. One day.
Well, I'll go on to the last question now. I'll ask both of you this question. If you could use a word to describe Unai Emery, sort of in one word, what would it be?
Professor.
Professor.
Professor Unai.
I'll go with transformative because he's absolutely transformed this team. And
That's a good word.
It's not even. I don't think it's done yet either. I think you give him a summer. I think you'll see a further transformation, and with exciting times. There's definitely exciting times ahead for us as Villa fans. I'll guarantee that.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go with genius.
Good one.
Totally fair enough.
Well, all right, guys, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And let me know with a comment your thoughts. Thanks to Dan and Frankie for your time. Please subscribe to the channel and keep your notifications on. The last thing I'm going to say is, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Up the mighty Villa.